to this year's Master of Ceremonies, Councilor David Alves.
Okay, we've got a couple, I'm going to give people just a couple of minutes to gather. We've got an outstanding program for you today, and a little bit of extra touches to make today's day even more special than it's been for a number of years. We're always proud here in the city of Bedford of our efforts to support, to recognize, and to appreciate our veterans. Those men and women who have served and those who continue to serve, it's our honor to recognize them, and the city of Bedford's gone out of their way to do so. I'm City Councilor Large Dave Alves, down there, a veteran, a member of the Greater New Bedford Veterans Council, and on behalf of the Greater New Bedford Veterans Council and the Mayor's Veteran Advisory Board, I want to welcome you all here this afternoon to our ceremony in which we recognize those veterans who have passed away, and more importantly, those that still serve. I think we've heard so many times, you know, that all gave some gave all, and that's the theme behind today. What I'd like to do to get started is to bring up our chaplain, Priscilla Fonseca, to do an invocation. Chaplain?
Almighty God, Father of all mankind and Judge over nations, we ask you to bless this memorial service and to look down with favor and understanding upon those who are gathered here to pay their tribute to those who have made the supreme sacrifice and for the benefit of all free men everywhere. The lives of those who paid the supreme sacrifice are glorious to us. Their deeds constitute a daily inspiration for those like ourselves who remain in their home communities. In God we trust, and may the faith of our fathers guide, protect, and sustain our people. Amen.
At this time, I'd like to invite the Council President, Joe Lopes, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
United States of America. Where is it? Where's the flag at?
And give a warm welcome to Alexis Cahill to lead us in the national anthem. Alexis?
What's so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleam, whose blood stripes gleaming like stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets had glide, their bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Yeah!
Great. Memorial Day observance has been part of the American scene for more than 100 years. Today we come together as individuals drawn to this place by a common purpose. Not to remember those who fell in a single battle, but to remember all too many who have died from too many wars. Let us never forget the patriots who have left us a heritage, and remember what our fathers have left us, for it demands our continued effort to safeguard it. Let us all join in the ceremonies of Memorial Day and make it a day of honoring our heroes and pledging to strive for a meaningful peace and to leave our children the same heritage that was so lovely and left for us. We carry on a tradition that can be traced back to President Lincoln and his dedication address at the Gettysburg Battlefield Cemetery. Remember the words, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here today, but it can never forget what they did." I believe it is that sentiment which inspired General Logan to issue his order to the Grand Army of the Republic to decorate graves. In 1868, General John L. Logan of the Grand Army of the Republic issued his historic order and established a tradition of public ceremonies. These ceremonies are to respect the freedom and the pursuit of happiness. And it's my pleasure this morning to invite Joseph Langlois, President of the Fort Tabor, Fort Rodman Historic Association, for the reading of Logan's orders. Joe?
The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers and otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but host and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind of fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more in assure this result than cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead, who made their breast a barricade between our country and its foes. Their soldier lives were the reveille of freedom to a race in chain, and their deaths the tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of a nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed ground. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and the going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull, other hands slack, and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remain in us. Let us then, at the time of appointed gathering around the sacred remains, and garland the passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us, in this solemn presence, renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as a sacred charge upon a nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widow and orphan. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate the observance with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of the departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to lend its friendly aid in bringing to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for a simultaneous compliance therewith. From John Logan, Commander-in-Chief, Grand Army of the Republic, General Order Number 11, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868.
You know, we're very fortunate here in the state of Massachusetts, and I say that as a veteran or on behalf of veterans. Our Commonwealth, the state of Massachusetts, provides the best veteran services of any state in the Commonwealth in the United States. Massachusetts has a record of providing the greatest amount of service, and we're very fortunate because that's done through people like our own veteran agent, Chris Gomes. Chris, on behalf of all of us and all of the veteran agents for the year, we thank you for your support and your effort. But that support, that effort, that funding from the state of Massachusetts doesn't come without some commitment from the people who vote on that funding, the people who make it happen. And we in the city of Bedford are very honored because we have a city government that's committed. But I'm also very proud that I serve with colleagues at the state level who make that commitment every day to ensure that our veterans agents get the funding they need and the support they need. Leading that charge in our area here is our state senator, a good friend of the community, a better friend of veterans than anyone I know. It's my pride to introduce Senator Mark Monticki.
Thank you, Councilor Alves. There is no way that I'd rather be described than the way you described me, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Chris Gomes, for the work you do, for your sacrifice at war, and then taking care of so many on return. David Alves and I spoke at the Women's Memorial back earlier in May, and I said to him that many times when he or the mayor or one of the veterans organizations, a leader from an organization has asked me to speak at these events, I politely declined and asked for indulgence only for this reason. First, because I have a difficult time finding words. And secondly, I believe firmly, my dad passed, Bud Montigny was a proud World War II veteran. Spent some time in Saigon, time over the Andrews Day Hill Post. And he brought us up implicitly to know that those of us who have not served could learn a lot by listening and saying less, including at these events. However, I also feel that it's my duty to offer the praise and the love and the respect that I have for veterans. And particularly this year, after telling David I would take a pass, I thought about it, because I think much will be said by men and women today that have served, but I also think one thing needs to be said. Because usually I come here simply with respect, and it's a stronger occasion. I come to this podium today with sadness and some anger in my heart, and I think it reflects what everyone here is thinking, and that is this. All of us that love servicemen and women and veterans should of course strive first and foremost for peace. But it is inevitable. We have gone to war and we will go to war again. And there's only three things that we owe every man and woman that goes off in harm's way. There's three things. First, civilian and military leaders owe the absolute truth. And that has not always been the case. Secondly, when men and women go to war, they need to have the best equipment in the field. They need to go there to end that war as quickly as they can and come home. And lastly, and this is perhaps where my frustration and anger comes from today, more and more men and women are coming home broken. And many of them are temporarily broken. Many of them are survivors. No man or woman that served has ever come to me and said, help me, I'm a victim. Every one of them has said, help me survive. And the scandal in Washington. I can stand here before you today and I can speak to each of you individually after, and I can at least look at you in the eyes if you've served and say, we've done our best. I'm here with Representative Schmid, Representative Kazera, Representative Cabral. I'm proud that David Alf just introduced us and said that we have the best program in the country for veterans. I'm proud that Chris Gomes, when he asks for something, more often than not, we will find a way to deliver it. That is not enough. This is a federal problem, and it needs federal solutions. And the fact that people are alleged, and you know what? Let me start over because I'm tired of that word. The fact that people have died waiting for care because of the Veterans Administration is despicable. The only time I felt this angry in my entire life was as a young boy, although I was too young, thankfully, to be drafted to Vietnam. My older brother was close, and I remember hearing the discussion at the dinner table, and I remember the despicable treatment of men and women as they came home from Vietnam. And the first day that I felt proud of the way we treated our veterans from Vietnam was in the parade after the Gulf War. I think that people actually realized how shameful it was in the treatment that our Vietnam veterans received, and I felt like the Vietnam veterans that day received 20 years of applause that they hadn't gotten in the prior years. We are here again. Men and women are coming home in much bigger numbers with tremendous need, and they're not being served in Washington. There is no excuse ever for the scandal that is happening there. It is not partisan. I'm as ashamed of the current Veterans Administration as I am of the predecessor administration. It's not political. It simply needs to be saved, and it needs to be fixed, and there is no price tag that this should even be discussed in that fix, because it is such a dishonorable way to treat our veterans. Thank you very much.
You know, the senator noted, and I noted that the senator provides a lot of funding for us as through the state, as we've received on many occasions. The senator's often noted to me that he's very fortunate. He serves with a good team from our area, a good team of local legislators, our state reps, that work with him, and as a team they're able to bring dollars down to Bedford, to this area, Cushnet, Fairhaven, and Dartmouth. And it's my pleasure to introduce the dean of that delegation, and he'll introduce his colleagues here on stage, Representative Bob Kazera. Robert?
Thank you, David. And good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
I've been asked on behalf of the City of New Bedford's House delegation, legislative delegation, to give a few remarks. So on behalf of my colleagues that are here today, Representative Paul Schmid, Representative Tony Cabral, myself, Representative Bob Kazera, and two of my colleagues who are not able to be with us this afternoon, Representative Bill Strauss and Representative Chris Markey. I'm pleased to be able to give the New Bedford Memorial Observation Day remarks on behalf of my colleagues. Today, New Bedford joins with communities all across the country in honoring those Americans who donned the uniform of our armed forces and paid the price with their lives so that we may enjoy the American way of life, so that we may enjoy the freedoms that we have every single day and take advantage of the opportunities our great country gives us. I was reading in remarks that the Veterans Services Secretary Coleman Nee gave recently, saying that over 1 million American lives have been lost defending our freedoms, defending our way of life, fighting for our country. That goes back from the Civil War right up to the war that we're fighting in Afghanistan today. Those members of the armed forces deserve our thanks and gratitude. And today, on a day that for the 146th year of our country's history, we've chosen to observe as Memorial Day those who paid the supreme sacrifice. So in closing, I want to thank every person who has served in the United States Armed Forces and those that serve today. And I also want to close by thanking you for coming out today to observe New Bedford's Memorial Day observance. Thank you very much.
You know, the senator noted that New Bedford has recognized veterans. He talked about the Vietnam-era veterans. And as a Vietnam-era veteran, along with my colleagues, Jim Olivera, you know, it wasn't easy. A lot of the veterans of Vietnam-era veterans that are here went through a very disturbing time when we came back. We didn't get the recognition that World War II or Korean veterans got. But I think it's changing, and it's changing for the better. But it's because of the education that our kids are receiving. They learn how to recognize and respect. And here with me today is the school committee, who are part of city government, so important. They play such an important role. And on behalf of the school committee, I'd like to invite the Vice Chairman, Jack Livamento, to come up and say a few words. Jack?
Thank you, Councilor Isles. First, I'd like to bring greetings from all of our school committee members, in particular, Mr. Josh Amaral, who's over here, and Miss Marlene Colley, and also Mr. Mayor Mitchell. And we also would like to bring greetings from the rest of the members of Dr. Finity, Mr. Nobrega, and Mr. Oliveira. Today is a day we set aside some time for our relatives and friends and members of our community who have given their total service to our country. We come together to honor their gift, to honor their presence in our community. We are all gifts in our city. We all have something to contribute. Our service personnel have contributed to our city, to our state, and to our world to make it a safer, a more peaceful world. We work at that because that is the aim, I think, of all armed forces, is that peace is what our direction is. I don't think we want to go through the process of really fighting wars continually over and over again. At some point in time, we need to be able to sit down and talk about what the problems may be so that we don't have to go to war. And that's the direction that I think I would like to push us and our future generations in. That we can stand up and say, we honor their presence for those persons who have made that sacrifice. But we look forward to the day and age when that is no longer going to be necessary. Although I know we will always need to be in a secure community. But we look forward to that day when we will no longer have to be sending our armed forces off to fight in some other country, such as Afghanistan, the Middle East, you name it. South America, Africa. It's looking forward to the day and age when peace is the direction for all of us. We come together as community because we support each other. We support one another. And that's a goal that we really need to hold on to, that we really need to cherish, each and every one of us in our community, to make sure that our lives are secure on a day-to-day basis and that our city is secure on a lively basis. I thank you for your presence. It was mentioned earlier that our crowds this year are larger than they've ever been. And that is thankful to you, and I appreciate your presence. Continue your celebration.
I was saying how lucky the senator is to serve with a great team at the State House. Well, I'm just as lucky. I get an opportunity to serve with a great team here in the city of New Bedford. We have made it, on the City Council, made it an issue to recognize returning veterans. We want them to know that we as a city appreciate their commitment, appreciate the time they've spent away from their families, and appreciate the hardship that they've gone through. It'll never happen again, as far as this city's concerned, that people, men and women, serve and not recognize and not appreciate it. That doesn't happen without a commitment, and I'm proud to serve with my colleagues and to introduce the president of this year's City Council. Council, Councilor Ward 6, Councilor Joseph Lowe.
It's an honor to give the greetings on behalf of the full City Council. We have members on the stage and in the audience. Councilor at Large Brian K. Gomes, Linda Morad, Deborah Coelho, Naomi Carney, and Councilor David Alves, who's a veteran. We have Ward 1, also a veteran, Jim Olivera. Ward 2, Stephen Martins. Ward 3, Henry Musquet. Ward 4, Dana Rivero. Ward 5, Terry Winterson. And myself, Joe Lowe. The one thing this council will always do is represent and always speak for veterans. As Councilor Alves said, we're honored and privileged to be able to recognize them when they come home, but we also realize that not every veteran that serves doesn't come home, and that's what we're celebrating today. We're celebrating the ultimate sacrifice that family members have made when they send their sons and daughters, their fathers and mothers overseas to protect the freedoms that we sometimes take for granted every day. Some of the best conversations I've ever had with veterans have taken place on Memorial Day and Veterans Day. They have so much to offer, so much wisdom to give, that we need to be able to willingly listen to them and take the advice that they have to give. It's an honor to be here to speak on behalf of the entire City Council. Thank you for coming today. Thank the Veterans Advisory Board for putting together a fabulous parade. It's getting better every year and it's getting bigger every year. Thank you and God bless.
If you're wondering, I did change the order of the speakers this afternoon, but I did it for a special reason. Our next person I'm going to introduce is someone we all know and someone who's worn a uniform himself and someone who ensures that Chris gets what he needs from the city, that veterans are recognized here in the city, and that the Vets Advisory Board, representing all of the conflicts that we've all served in, is supporting and looking out for veterans. It's my pleasure this afternoon to recognize the mayor of the city of New Bedford. I'm going to ask that he introduce our keynote speaker for the afternoon. The mayor of the city of New Bedford, the Honorable John Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you can't hear me, come on down up. I'm going to introduce somebody whose words you will want to hear. Veterans Day and Memorial Day alike are the days when I am most proud to be the mayor of our city. The reality is that we are a deeply patriotic community that puts in the little extra to honor our veterans, to do the little things. If you visited New Bedford today, if there are any visitors to New Bedford among us today, I'm sure you will have noted that this is a community that cares about this event, that cares about treating veterans right, and that cares about honoring service and what it means not just to the veterans, but what it means to the community. And that way I want to thank emphatically the Mayor's Veterans Advisory Board, all of them and Veterans Council for their hard work today in putting together the event. I want to thank in particular Chris Gomes and Bob Bromley, who have been working on this for months now, have done a great job. Would you join me in a round of applause for their hard work? I also would be remiss if I did not thank our city crews for making the park look sharp, for making the roadway look sharp, and so our thanks go out to the Department of Public Infrastructure and as well as the Police Department for doing a great job along the parade route. It is, as President Lincoln said, altogether fitting and proper that we honor veterans from time to time. On Memorial Day and Veterans Day and every other day during the course of the year. We owe what we have today as Americans to their sacrifice. We are lucky to be Americans. We are lucky to live in a country where one can freely express oneself, where one can live safely under the umbrella of a protective military, and one can live out the American dream knowing that all that matters at the end of the day is how hard you work and your God-given talents. That we owe to our military. That's what we owe to veterans. These occasions, however, only do the trick. They only serve the purpose they are meant to serve if it forces reflection on all of us. If it isn't, and I know I'm speaking to the choir, each one of you today has taken time out of your busy days, out of a nice weekend, Memorial Day weekend, to be here. And we do have a good crowd today. But there's a certain gospel that we need to leave here with and spread. And that is, on occasions like Memorial Day and Veterans Day, we need to reflect on the fact that the men that we honor, the women that we honor today, were ordinary people. Men and women, young men and women, who had their own dreams and their own aspirations, and at a point in time, at a given point in time, not of their own choosing, they heard the call, and they stepped forward, and they served. And they've made us, today, many of us unborn when they served, better off, better able to pursue our own American dreams. That is the legacy they left behind. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean for us, those who have inherited this legacy? What it means is you can't, it's not possible to pay them back. It's not a debt. It's not a loan in the traditional sense of the word. But there is a way that we can make a difference. We make a difference in the way that they would have us make a difference. And that is to serve. They went out and served purposes beyond their own self-interest. They gave it all. They've been doing it over the long life of America, from Bunker Hill to Gettysburg, to the Marne, to Iwo Jima, to the Chosin Reservoir, to Saigon, to Saudi Arabia, to Baghdad. And today, there are kids out there from New Bedford out patrolling the hills, the dark hills of Afghanistan. And they know that they don't have to be there. They stepped forward. They could be back at home playing Xbox on the couch, hanging out with friends on Memorial Day and kicking back. They made a choice. They made a choice to serve, and all that's left up to us is to do the same, to step forward. So let us take inspiration to be like them, to be extraordinary, day in and day out, to make our communities and our country a better place. Military service, in my view, is the highest form of public service. And there are many who are, and those who serve do us a great deed. There are other ways to serve, and we have to find our own way of doing it day in and day out. So let us take inspiration from these services, from the memorials that we have, the beautiful memorials that we have here in New Bedford and in other places. Let us take every time we have one of these reminders, let's reflect on what each of us can do. And I know there's no better way to take inspiration or derive inspiration than to hear it from the words of somebody who's actually served, someone who has done extraordinary things, an ordinary person who has stepped up and done the exceptional, not for himself, but for his country, period. We are joined today by a friend that I am honored to introduce today. He was a young man on June the 6th, 1944, and stepped up in a way that one can only imagine ourselves doing. Now think about that time. The Normandy invasion, as General Eisenhower described it, was the Great Crusade of Liberty. The time when the free world took action to take back German-occupied Europe. And at the head of it all was the 82nd Airborne Division. The 82nd Airborne Division has been called America's 911. It is an extraordinarily elite unit that has made history over the last 70 years, time and time again in each war, and it continues to do so today. It is American excellence in the military profession that we can all be proud of. And back in 1944, June 6th, the 82nd Airborne Division was tasked with dropping into the Normandy Peninsula behind German lines to secure German artillery emplacements, to cut off roads as the Wehrmacht rushed up the peninsula to meet the Allied invasion, and to make sure that our men who were landing on Omaha and Utah beaches could secure a beachhead. I am lucky here today to introduce in a moment a longtime friend of mine, who was a young platoon leader, led his glider teams, or both units that parachuted, of the 82nd, that parachuted into Normandy, as well as flew gliders in to drop jeeps and other equipment off so that the Americans could advance to their spots. Eddie McLean was one of those platoon leaders. I've known Eddie for an awfully long time, and he doesn't like to talk about his exploits, but I asked him today to share a little bit, to share what he did that was extraordinary. Here it was, some 70 years ago, almost to the very day, that he led his men into the night at about midnight, 0 hour, on June the 6th, 1944. In the Allied assault on German-occupied Europe, this gentleman right here was at the tip of the spear. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce a friend, a resident of the North End, and a grade A American hero, Eddie McLean.
The first thing I want to say is, because this is Memorial Day, I want to talk about the memorial that we have in the south end of New Bedford, the Fort Taber Military Museum. It's open 7 days a week. It's free from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. The only days it's not open is Christmas and Thanksgiving. Joe Langlois and Bob Bromley are the instigators. They're the men that have made it what it is. My story starts in England. As we're preparing our gliders as we go into Normandy at an airport in England called Ramsey, Six Flat. This lieutenant, first lieutenant in our group, executive officer, came to me. As a platoon leader, I was entitled to a jeep. As the executive officer of the battalion, of the battery, he was not entitled to a jeep. He said to me, "I'm going in your jeep." I said, "Does the captain approve of this?" He said, "Yes, he does." So I gave him a salute, and I said, "Where is your glider?" And he showed me where his glider was, and I proceeded to his glider, which was loaded with personnel and ammunition. Our gliders would only hold so much. People were surprised to learn that we couldn't put a whole battalion in them, but we couldn't. We could put a jeep in them with 2 men. We could put a trailer loaded with ammunition and 2 men. We could put men in the glider and ammunition. As you could see, it would take quite a number of gliders to make a team. And as we flew into Normandy early in the morning, pitch black, I could see anti-aircraft as we approached the French coast. Well, the Germans were not asleep. They were aware that we were on our way. My thought was, as I said, my glider was loaded with personnel and ammunition. Our ammunition was 57 millimeter anti-tank projectiles. We couldn't carry our guns and our ammunition and our men and our jeeps all together. So they were separated, as I indicated before. My thought was, if one of those anti-aircraft bullets or artillery shells hits the nose of one of our shells, That's it, we're all done. Fortunately, as you can see, that didn't happen. Because here I am. As I say, we landed, scattered on the Sherbet Peninsula from one end to the other, because as we approached the coast, the fog moved in, and the pilots lost sight control. They lost their marks they were supposed to follow to get us to a certain place. Anyway, as I said, we were scattered from one end of the Sherbet Peninsula to the other. Anyway, when we finally got together, using we had compasses and road marks, railroads, highways, rivers. Using these marks, we get to our assembly area. As we got to our assembly area, even our colonel didn't make it, but our executive officer was in charge. There was very few of us there. This was during the daytime of June 6th. He said to me, I want you, because he had a Jeep, I want you to take this Jeep and go down the highway and find our scattered guns, Jeeps, trailers, men, and ammunition. I said, okay. And off I went. As I'm going down the highway, off in a field, I could see a Jeep just sitting in the field. So I asked the driver to stop while I walked into the field to see what the story was. But the reason I didn't have him drive into the field was because Rommel had mined a lot of the fields in Normandy in anticipation of airborne assaults. And he knew that if a man or a piece of equipment tripped these mines, they'd blow up and be killed. So very gingerly I walked in. As I approached this glider, this Jeep from the rear, it has on the bumper, the people that have been in the service know that every piece of equipment is identified as to where it belongs and who it belongs to by stenciling that's on the bumper of the vehicle. Well, as I approach this vehicle from the rear, and I'm reading the bumper, it's my Jeep. This is not funny. In the passenger seat was the lieutenant who took my place. His back is full of bullet holes. So I am a living memorial of Normandy for that event. I have another little short story. About a month ago, I was interviewed for a newspaper article that the man was doing on veterans. And when I told him I was in the 82nd Airborne in gliders, he says to me, "What's a glider?" I said, "A glider is an airplane with no motors." And I must say to any of you people here who would like to see a glider, an airplane with no motors, come down to the museum Wednesday between 1 and 4, and I'll have a nice colored picture of a glider. You then will know what a glider is. And now I also want to state that the mayor's grandfather and I were very good friends. That's how I met John. And his grandfather was an aerial forward observer for the 20th Armored Division in France during World War II. So John is descendant from a World War II hero also. I'm all done.
Thank you.
Tell you what, it's a tough act to follow, but it's an impressive feat on behalf of all of us. Thank you for your service. While we were listening, I did get a text from Congressman Keating. Congressman Keating expected to be here today. He marched in the Plymouth parade just for practice. And then he was on his way over. He got called to, I guess he's doing a presentation, so he did send me a note expressing his regrets, but just wanted to compliment all of you for being here today. I also wanted to note that this afternoon you may have heard a couple of people stutter, a mispronunciation, but the compliment that I pay to all of them is that though they might have had a note or two in their pocket, everyone here spoke from their heart with personal intentions for all of you to hear. So I want to compliment all of you. We've done something a little different, hoping the weather will hold out a little while this year. This year, we've looked back over the veterans and the record of all the veterans that have passed away since last Memorial Day. We didn't do it by any specific preference, and it's tough. If we miss anyone's name, please advise us. I think for the next year, we're a little more committed in working with the funeral directors. We're getting the names. But we thought it was an honor to the families to recognize those veterans who have served, who passed away since the last time we all got together, and to recognize and show our appreciation. And I'd like to ask Oliver Moreau from DAV Chapter 7 to come up and start that roll call list.
Myron Orferio, World War II, U.S. Marine Corps. Edward Anderson, Jr., Navy. Daniel Butler, Navy. James Camione, Army. Angelo D. Bertoli, Sr., Navy. Antonis DeWatt, Navy. Eric R. Erickson, Army. Jacinto S. Ferro, Navy. Luciano V. Floor, Army. Walter Gage, Sr., U.S. Marine Corps. Alfred E. Garcia, Army. Peter Giamalvo, Army. Raymond L. Giason, Navy. Armando J. Gilbert, Army. Francis Gillespie, Navy. George L. Gosselin, Army. Shirley Jernigan, Jr., Navy. Manuel P. Jordan, Navy. Everest LaFrance, Army. Walter R. Layla, Army. Henry Lopes, World War II, Army. Richard Marshall, Army. Paul J. McCauley, Army. James F. McGlynn, Army. Arthur P. Morta, U.S. Marine Corps. Eugene McConovitz, Coast Guard. David J. Oliver, Navy. Joseph L. Olivera, Army. John Paticos, Army. Joseph J. Patella, Army. Norman L. Pepin, Army. Donald Perry, Navy. Roger A. Roy, Army. Joseph M. Roderick, Army. Henry Sylvia, Navy. Arthur Sword, Army. Leonard F. Sylvia, Navy. Leonel Thomas, Army. William H. Youngblood, Army.
John Aruto, Korea, Navy. Anton Barboza, Korea, Marine Corps. Lucien Blaze, Korea, Air Force. John M. Cavallo, Korea, Army. Leonard L. DuPont, Korea, Army. James F. Francis, Korea, Army. Jose Freitas, Korea, Army. Joseph H. Garcia, Korea, Army. George W. Hoffman Jr., Korea, Army. John J. Mulligan, Korea, Army. Americo Nobrega, Korea, Air Force. Joseph Caesar, Korea, Army. John Sylvia Jr., Korea, Army. John E. Vallis, Korea, Air Force. Thomas E. Woolley, Korea, Navy.
Robert Barboni, Vietnam, Army. Frank Barrows, Vietnam, Coast Guard. Ramon M. Brooks, Vietnam, Navy. Walter R. Childs, Jr., Vietnam, Army. Louis J. Christie, Vietnam, Army. Joseph M. Cruz, Vietnam, United States Marine Corps. Roy A. Phillips, Vietnam, Air Force. Patrick Flanagan, Vietnam, Army. Wayne Fontaine, Vietnam, Army. Douglas R. Frazier, Vietnam, Army. Leo R. Lissette, Vietnam, Army. Wilfred J. Martell Jr., Vietnam, Air Force. Vincent E. McGuire, Vietnam, Navy. Richard Perry, Vietnam, Navy. Ralph F. Morris, Vietnam, United States Marine Corps. Sheila Ribeiro, Vietnam, Army. Ernest C. Souza, Jr., Vietnam, Air Force. Daniel L. Stoltz, Vietnam, Army. Alfred L. Victor, Vietnam, Air Force. Michael G. Zarek, Vietnam, Air Force. Robert K. Vieira, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Navy, Army.
Thomas Bauer, Army. William Bruce, Army. Roberto Carter, Army. Joseph Castaldo, Army. Raymond Cody, Army. Keith Curtis, Army. Benjamin Duat, Army. Peter Kresge, Army. Benjamin Laffey Jr., Army. Richard Williams, Army. John Williams, Army. David A. Gonzalez, U.S. Marine Corps. Vincent Bradford, Navy. Richard McCleary, Navy. Lorraine Ramus, Navy. Lloyd Rourke III, Navy. Manuel Lazarga, Navy. Richard Ellison, Air Force. John Harrington, Air Force. Troy Ramus, Air Force. Richard Holtkamp, U.S. Coast Guard. Carol Calvin, National Guard. Edward Flood, National Guard. Michael Lawrence, National Guard. Stephen Ryan, National Guard. L. Vatinsky, National Guard. And Angel Vasquez, New Bedford High School, ROTC.
That's our reading of the roll. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Jillian Trucco, Miss New Bedford, to come up and sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Jillian?
I'm so honored to be here today, and I'm going to sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And I have to say that everybody's heard of the song and knows of the song, and so have I. But until I was preparing to sing it for you today, I was not aware of how powerful the lyrics are. So please listen to the words, and please sing the chorus with me. I'll give you a little sing. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free, while God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Thank you.
Now, as I ask the chaplain to come up for a prayer, I'm going to ask the mayor and Ms. McLean to have the honor of placing the wreath in front of the monument, honoring all those veterans who have passed away from all the branches of the service. Gentlemen, if you stand at attention.